teabag word of wisdom say? A garden is a delight to the eye and a solace for the soul. I can get behind that. Okay, so I wasn't really planning on recording this video, but it's just something that really came up and is really speaking to me and to what I'm going through, to what my partner and I are going through. I have a pack of tissues. It has a little cheesy phrase, "Find your fearless." Little pack of travel tissues. So I probably will be getting emotional here in a minute. I'm also about 4 days away from my period, so things are intense. But that candle that I showed at the beginning of this video is a working on gratitude that I started last night because we paid off our credit card debt yesterday, and that got me to thinking about gratitude because I realized that a magical working that I had started about 2 months ago, which is back there, you can't really see it, back there on my more working altar space. I kind of had lost sight of it because I was so focused on how I wanted it to manifest. It was kind of a prosperity spell. I don't really have the words for it. It was a prosperity working, but it was more like helping me to heal my relationship to money, but also helping me work on my perfectionism, and it was a multi-purpose magical working. I know in general when you read all the intro witchy books and stuff, they say make sure you're clear and focused, but I really can't work that way. I have a very wild, interwoven, chaotic way of being. That's why I really view my matron goddess, who I call Mama Creatrix, as a goddess of chaos, entropy, and rebirth, among other things. So different threads are tied and braided together in my mind, and so that was what that working is all about. But I kind of had lost sight on how it might manifest. And actually, the candle that I showed at the beginning of the video that I started last night has helped me to remember gratitude and realize that sometimes things don't work out how you've planned. So let's go back to the beginning of the month, and I have my bullet journal here. So every month I do a monthly tarot card reading just to see what the vibes are each month, see how different archetypes might help me make progress in my work, because I'm currently studying for my last and biggest and most important PhD exam. That's a big deal because I'm about to pass to candidacy. How I can, help my partner and his endeavors and blah blah blah, just to feel things out. Well, this month, the month of March, has been fucking intense. And I knew it was going to be intense right off the bat because on March 1st, when I did my tarot card reading, I looked at the lunar calendar, and that's when I realized we're going to have a blue moon this month, meaning that we're going to have 2 full moons this month. One on the 1st of the month and one on the 31st of the month. So the month is capped, bookended by 2 full moons. And the full moon, to me, it's a time of gratitude, it's a time of giving thanks, but also it's a time of reflection and evaluation, because I think of the moon, the full moon, being that reflective surface, reflecting the sun's light into the darkness, illuminating things that we might not necessarily always have access to. So it's a time of evaluating how things are going and of reflection, right? So book ended by 2 full moons, and then my tarot card reading, I used the Green Witch Tarot, by the way, for anybody who's familiar with that tarot deck. And the first card I pull is the Witch Hunt, which in a Rider-Waite-Smith deck would be the Tower. Bam! The Tower. Oh, great. And then the next card I pull is the Crone, or Strength. And the last card is the She, or Temperance. So right there I have three major arcana cards, and the first one was the Tower. So I knew shit was gonna get intense going into this month, but I just didn't know how it's gonna manifest or what aspects of our lives it was gonna touch on. So then around the middle of the month, right before, a week before spring break, my husband goes to talk to one of the coordinators in his department, because my husband has been working and teaching this year. They gave him a 1-year contract, meaning that his visa was extended 1 year. He's allowed 3 total years to extend his visa before he's basically like runs out of luck and is forced to go back to Chile. So this was year number 1. So that means he has 2 more years that he can stay and work in the US. And the restrictions of his visa require him to work on a university campus. He can't work off a campus, basically. So very restrictive, right? So he goes to talk to his coordinator, and he tells her, oh, you know, by the way, I know the hiring process for the department hasn't gone well, because they were looking to hire 2 professors, because a few of them in the past couple of years have retired and they had some vacancies, and so they were looking to hire 2 new professors, one a clinical position, meaning that they would be eligible for tenure, but it was mostly for teaching, and 2 excuse me, a research professor. Well, they only hired the clinical position, so they didn't hire the research professor. And so when you're hired for research, it's not like you don't teach at all. You do teach, but you might only teach 1 or 2 classes per semester instead of the full teaching load, which is 4. So that way you have time to dedicate to research. So my husband let her know that, you know, he heard they hadn't hired as many people as they thought they would, and that he is definitely available to have his contract renewed, and he's very open to staying another year. Now, she told him, oh yeah, no, that shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, thanks, actually, I was worried about how it's going to cover everything. So he came home like beaming, telling me the good news and whatnot, and we were both like 95% sure that we would be able to stay here in this apartment, and he would be able to stay here in this country another year. And by the way, if you're not familiar with our situation / his immigration situation, I'll have a video pop up here going over the last time that we had to deal with a bunch of immigration bullshit, which was around this time last year. And shit was intense and scary, and I go into detail about that in that other video. So check that out if you want to kind of get the backstory to this. But here we are a year later. We're like 95% sure that we'll be able to stay here, and that's super significant, not just in the fact that he'll be able to stay and work and get more experience and also have more time to try to publish some of his research while he's here in the US, which is really important for his career, especially when it comes time to come back into the US 2 or 3 or maybe 4 years from now. that would really help him be more competitive on the job market, and the academic job market is shit right now because the current political climate and budget cutting and stuff is not very conducive to getting decent jobs in academia, but that's a whole other story. That's something I'm going to have to worry about in about 3 years when it's hopefully time for me to graduate and hit the market. But anyway, it's not just important for him to stay another year because that would really help him in his career and building up his curriculum vitae, his CV and resume and stuff. It's also important to us because basically we have not had the same address, we have not lived together for a whole year since before we got married, because we got married and then I went off to Massachusetts to start my PhD program. I was up there for 3.5, almost 4 years. He was down here finishing up his PhD / graduating and all that. So we have dealt with long distance. We have dealt with financial problems partially caused by that long distance. We have dealt with just so much shit. Tissue time. And on top of that, we have dealt with his immigration situation. Because grad school is incredibly difficult and it can be an isolating process to get a PhD, especially when you're done with coursework and it's time for you to start producing your own research and writing your own dissertation and whatnot. So it's a very grueling, intense process. And when you add to that financial problems or health problems or family problems, and in his case, immigration problems, it can be too much to bear sometimes. So, it's been an intense ride. And someone might ask me, well, you chose to go up to Massachusetts and get a PhD up there instead of staying at Georgia, because I was offered a position at Georgia, or in Georgia at the university here where we're at now, in their PhD program. But I was given or offered an opportunity I literally could say no to. And it was really important for me in my career and my fulfillment to take that opportunity. And my husband, who is an incredible, supportive person, said, of course you have to go up there, we'll figure it out. So yeah, I guess all this background information is just saying, like, we've been through a lot. And so fast forward to a few weeks ago, after he talked to the graduate, or I don't know what her title is, one of the coordinators in the department, and she seemed to give him some really positive feedback, saying like, oh yeah, it shouldn't be a problem to renew your contract, we could use you, blah blah. Apparently a week later after that, and this was the Thursday or the Friday before spring break, they had a faculty meeting. My husband was not in that meeting because he's not considered full faculty or whatever. He's just a lecturer. And after the faculty meeting, his former advisor walks up to him and says, Dario, we can't renew your contract. There's not enough undergraduate students to fill up the classes for next year. And he comes home and he tells me this. So in general, it really sucks when you suddenly find out that you're going to lose your job, right? It can cause financial turmoil and instability and chaos, and when you grow up kind of poor like he did and I did, money problems it's a thing, right? But when you add to that how that impacts his immigration, if he's not hired, if he's not working, if he doesn't have a contract at a university, he can't legally stay in the United States. So, I mentioned before that we, around the same time last year, were in a very similar situation, although I have to admit it was worse. We were still dealing with long distance, our money problems were worse at the time, and on top of that, he was still trying to finish his dissertation, and then all of a sudden we were worried like he would be forced out of the country and he would have to finish his dissertation and graduate from Chile, and after that, what do we do, you know? At least now, he has the PhD. Like, no one can take that away from him. So, we are in a better situation now. But we had gotten our hopes up, and we were really looking forward to just 1 year of being together. 1 year, finally, of living together. 1 full year of living together as a married couple, which would be the first time we could do that since getting married, since before getting married. 1 year of financial stability, and it would be really helpful for me in making progress on my own dissertation, because basically I'm about to take my last exam. Then I prepare a prospectus, which is like a rough draft proposal of my dissertation project, and then starting in September or October, I'm supposed to be writing my dissertation. So having stability when you're doing intense academic writing, not to mention having access to university libraries and materials, is so important, because so many PhD students don't make it. And the reason they don't make it is because they just never finish the dissertation, because life happens, health issues happen, financial problems happen, or they just run out of time and they run out of funding. So it's really important to have a good, strong start. And the first chapter is usually the hardest, because that's when you're getting a feel and setting the rhythm and setting everything up. So this has been a huge blow for us. Right now, we have a few avenues of hope. He's reached out to some people and they've offered him a few hours of work here or there, but things are still very much up in the air. And as of now, at the end of March 2018, you know, his visa expires May 30th. And after that, we're not sure where we're going to be, or where he's going to be. So you know, after a while of, and basically after 3-4 years of dealing with immigration and money issues, and just like going through the PhD process, which sometimes can feel like crawling naked over broken glass, you know, uphill. It's just been a lot, and it almost feels like anytime something like this happens, it brings to mind everything that we've already been through. And it's hard to feel grateful for anything, even though objectively, we have a lot to feel grateful for. It's just hard to see it when you're in the middle of the storm, you know? Especially when the storm seems to come out of nowhere. But yesterday, we paid off all of our credit card debt. I can't remember if I mentioned this at the beginning of the video or not. And we were able to pay that off because I got the deposit back from my apartment that I had up in Massachusetts, which we used to pay off his credit card. And we also did our taxes, and we were able to use that to pay off my credit card. And not having that debt hanging over our heads has been such a relief, because we were worried that if we had to go to Chile this year, like he would go at the end of May or June, I would go around September or October time frame, we were worried about how we were going to pay off these credit cards, because going from Chilean pesos to dollars is rough. It's really rough. So we didn't want this debt hanging over our heads before moving abroad. And debt can be just so crippling and so just, God, dehumanizing. It really can. So when we, made the payments on our credit cards and checked the bank statements and everything online, it kind of hit me like, oh my God, this is my prosperity spell working. And there's a lesson to this. And the lesson is, remember to have perspective. And remember to be open to all possibilities. Because for me, working with a goddess of chaos and being a very chaotic witch myself, which I'm in the coming weeks, I'm going to actually do a little mini-series on my channel of kind of defining my terms for how I identify myself in my own words, right? Chaos is one of them, so be on the lookout for that. But when you open those doors, a spell is opening the door to potentialities, to all the possibilities, right? And you can try to direct your focus or energy or whatever you want to call it to the outcomes that you can foresee, but sometimes the outcomes take different forms. And when they do, that is, in my mind, a special opportunity to reflect on flexibility and to reflect on gratitude, especially when you're in the middle of the storm and these chaotic tower moments. It can be a hard lesson, but an important lesson to remember gratitude. And to remember that even though you may not feel like it in the moment, in a day or so, you might be able to sit down and remember the things in your life that are going well. The things in your life that you are grateful for. Right? And like I said before, when it feels like you've been dealt blow after blow after blow after blow, it can be hard to remember that. And actually you almost develop this pattern, this thought pattern in your mind, anticipating the next blow to happen, and then when it happens you automatically go into survival mode almost. You automatically go into thinking okay, what's the next step? What do I need to do here? What do I need to do here? What's the next month or the next week or the next year going to look like? How is this going to go down? And for me and my husband, he does this too, we automatically think in terms of worst case scenario, which can be helpful because you're preparing yourself for the worst, right? But it can also, if you don't balance it out with gratitude, it can really turn into like pessimistic, negative thinking. And when I say negative, I know positive and negative or whatever are tricky terms, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It can turn into a spiral of just feeling helpless or out of control, depression, anxiety, which I have, both of those things, and just losing yourself to the chaos, right? And gratitude, I've found, especially in light of lighting that candle, really helps me to slow things down and actually helps me to sit with and work through my anxiety. And my anxiety, of course, is triggered by all of these life events and things going on. Naturally, anybody's would, right? But by practicing gratitude, and I have a little every month in my bullet journal, I have a list. Each day I try to remember to write down at least one thing that I'm grateful for. And that has been so healing because it really helps to slow things down and help me to refocus the lens. So that way the lenses through which I'm viewing the world and viewing these situations that I'm dealing with they aren't just the negative, you know. It helps me to be more in the present moment, which is something that I've also been trying to work on through meditation, through reading more about Buddhism, especially like secular Buddhism, and how Buddhism and Western philosophy can kind of intermingle, right? It's really helped me to slow my mind down, to work on my anxiety, to work through it, to become more conscious of it, and to look at my perspectives from an objective position and realize where I might need to make adjustments. So yeah, gratitude is so important. It's so important. And when I first heard about like having a gratitude journal or a gratitude practice or whatever, my initial reaction was like, whatever. Because I can kind of have a snarky side to my personality, a skeptical, snarky side. But really though, it's so important, especially when you're going through those tower moments, and especially when shit hits the fan, and especially when you're working through things like depression and anxiety. There's a time and a place for contemplation and reflection, but there's also a time and a place for being proactive about it. And actually a gratitude journal, or even just writing on a piece of paper, writing down one thing per day of that month. You're being proactive about it, but you're also reflecting. But you're changing the focus of that reflection and introspection onto more positive things. To use that tricky binary of negative and positive, right? But again, you know what I mean. I didn't cry as much as I thought I would. But that's what's going on in my life. I just kind of felt called to share a little bit of what's going on. I'll keep you guys posted. But I also want to kind of talk more about gratitude, and really how gratitude can help slow down the thought process, slow down the anxiety, slow down everything, and help you to be in that moment and remember what you have in your life that you appreciate, because it's all too easy to just automatically go to those darker places, right? So yeah, if you have a gratitude practice, if you have a gratitude journal or a daily gratitude practice, I know Arwen, I follow her on Instagram. I'm on Instagram, by the way. This is a recent development. I think at the end of my channel I have 3 links or whatever. I have my Student Witch Gmail account, I have my Facebook information, and now Instagram. So that's a newish development. Probably about a month ago maybe I started that. I'm just dipping my toes more and more into the world of social media and whatnot. So if you're curious, I am pretty active on there. Probably once every day or 2 I post something. So I actually made a post about this topic, and making that post made me realize that I needed to talk more in depth about it, and also just talk out some of the shit we're going through. So anyway, yeah, check out my Instagram. But going back to y'all's gratitude practices, I know Arwen has her daily joys, which is great to see. But yeah, how do you incorporate gratitude into your daily, weekly, monthly life, workings, whatever? Do you do spell work related to gratitude? That's something I'm really interested in since putting together my candle over there. Is there a specific moon phase that you associate with gratitude? I'm just so curious to hear from y'all and kind of talk more about this. It's important, and just the past 24 hours has been so healing, you have no idea. So yeah, I look forward to hearing from you guys, and until next time, many blessings. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.